The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gohmert, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the witnesses being here. Mr. Cole, if you'd been testifying in front of this committee back before Edward Snowden took the documents he did, and you would ask if it was possible that any contractor would be able to access and take the documents that we now know he did, based on your comment that nobody can access these documents without proper cause, back then you would have said nobody could access those documents without proper cause and authorization, wouldn't you?
I think what I was saying, Congressman, is under the law and the court order, nobody is allowed to do that without violating the law or
so
the court order.
You're making a distinction that it is possible that they could access those documents just like Edward Snowden did, correct?
Things are possible. I don't think Edward Snowden, this is something that we'd like to nail down, but exactly what?
Well, you answered my question on that. The answer, though, accurately would be that not only members of Congress, but anybody is subject to having that data looked at or accessed by someone who may not follow the law. But let me tell you, all of you witnesses, having been through in my first term, we went through the process of debating whether or not we were going to renew the Patriot Act. And 215 was of particular importance. And I asked the question, for example, under 215, where it says, here we go, to protect, that you'd only access these documents to protect against international terrorism or clandestine intelligence activities. I said, what in clandestine intelligence activities? And I was assured that since we're talking about international terrorism, our intelligence activities have to do with foreigners. And we were assured that was the case. And Chairman Sensenbrenner at the time assured that he had been assured that that was the case. And that's why he was initially totally opposed to any more sunsets that I fought so hard for, and we did finally get in here. And now we find out those representations were not accurate. Let me tell you something else that concerns me is, yes, I know the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment does say that we have the right to be secure in our persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and that's not to be violated, and no warrants are to be issued upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing place to be searched, persons or things to be seized. And when we saw the copy of this order from the FISA court, all those assurances from my term as a freshman went out the window, because you have a judge based on this before the FISA court just says give all call detail records, telephony metadata, and then it defines telephony metadata basically as everything that you would desire about the information a call is being made. I cannot find in that order any particularity or any specificity as courts, at least appellate courts, have always required. So this causes me great concern, without regard for discussion about Snowden, the fact that we had information provided to us that were misrepresentations of what was being done by this government. So let me also ask, since we've been told repeatedly how critical this FISA ability under 215 is, we've been told that all of these different plots have been foiled, and when it comes right down to it, it appears it was basically a subway bombing, and there are articles that indicate that, well, gee, they intercepted some information, so they went back and got all the phone logs for communication, but you don't need FISA courts, you don't need 215 when you have probable cause from a terrorist, a known terrorist, calling an American citizen. You would be able to get a warrant for that, wouldn't you? I ask all of you.
Well, I think there's a couple of issues there.
Well, the question is, you would be able to get a warrant if you showed that a known foreign terrorist made calls to an American citizen. You could go in and get basically any court to grant a warrant to get those logs, could you not?
It depends on whether you get it under FISA, in which case you would have to show that it was an agent of a foreign power or a terrorist in a
That was
related
part of my
foreign
question,
intelligence.
a known foreign terrorist.
Right. You may well be able to do that under
Mr.
that
Swire,
if you had.
you think we could get that?
Congressman, to date, the courts have not held that that was a search. So they say there's not a Fourth Amendment constitutional protection in the metadata, and we recommend.
In other words, you don't need 215 to get that, do you?
Well, you'd need some statutory basis to require the companies to turn over the data, but it's not a constitutional protection. It's statutory right now.
And if I might,
Time of the gentleman has
if I
expired.
could get an answer from our last witness.
We agree that under current Supreme Court law, there's not a constitutional Fourth Amendment issue, but we also do believe this information could be obtained through other authorities, a warrant, a grand jury subpoena, or possibly national security.
Without 215?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would only be required for the listening of the call, not for the metadata.
Thank you. I yield back.